Good afternoon and welcome to the Portland Children's Levy Allocation Committee meeting. I'm City Commissioner and Allocation Committee Chair Dan Saltzman. And with us today are my colleagues. On my left is Serena Stoudemire-Wesley, who is the Multnomah County Citizen Representative. On my near right is Julie S. Young, who is the City of Portland's Citizen Representative. On the far right is Mitch Horniker, who represents the Portland Business Alliance. And then I believe that County Chair Deborah Kafori will be joining us any minute. And I want to thank the county for sharing their space with us today as the City Council chambers are occupied today. And I'll introduce our Levy staff now. We have Director Lisa Pellegrino, Assistant Director Meg McElroy, Lisa Hansel, John Kelly, and Mary Gay Broderick. And before we get started, let's approve our minutes from our March 31st meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Greetings. Chair Kafori. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved.
I apologize for being late, even though I only had to come downstairs.
I know, you had the shortest commute of all of us. Well, we appreciate you sharing your chambers with us today. So next we have time for public comment on non-agenda items. So I think most of you know that our major agenda item today will be how we make some decisions about investing the $8.1 million in additional revenue that we have over the next 2 years. So you'll have time to comment on that later in the agenda, but we always set aside some time in the beginning of our agenda if there's anybody that wishes to comment on anything that's not related to agenda items. So do we have anybody that wishes to speak to us on non-agenda? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on. And we're now going to have staff lead us through a discussion on the first set of options for us to consider and to vote upon, if we're comfortable with that. To refresh everyone's memory, at our March 31st meeting, we decided not to run another request for information process for various reasons, including the amount of time it would take to do so, given our intent to get these extra dollars invested in a timely manner so that projects can start on July 1st of this year. So the first set of options we will consider includes and these could be possible decisions we make today, which would be to allocate some funding for additional preschool funding, for funding a child care assistance initiative, also funding a technical assistance quality improvement initiative for our grantees, and then supporting our system partners. And if that's the will of the committee, hopefully we can tackle those issues today and then leave our June 2nd meeting to wrestle on the funding options of what we will do with respect to the remaining funding, and it's investing it in additional programs. And we still need to make a decision about whether we're going to limit that to grants that we've already funded, or we're going to allow or open the consideration to include grants we've already funded and possibly grants that were not funded in our most previous round. So that's a discussion item that will still to come. But I do hope we can at least get through decisions today on the preschool slots, the child care initiative, the technical advice, and the supporting system partners proposals. And now I'll turn it over to Lisa Pellegrino to walk us through this.
So I wanted to just try to get clarity first off if folks are okay with going with the plan that Dan just outlined, because I think that we wanted to sort of be able to set our agenda and make sure we can, there's a lot of folks here who want to talk to you all today about what we'll decide next time, hopefully. So I just want to sort of make sure that we're all on the same page and we're okay to go forward with making decisions on the four options that Dan outlined today. Do people want to have discussion about that or have further talking about it? Are people okay to go forward on that?
Feel great about making a decision on the first two. I don't, in terms of what a decision means on the last two, in terms of are we going to do it and how much we're going to set aside or something, might get a little complicated, but maybe we'll see a clear path to that. But certainly on the preschool slots and the child care initiative.
Well, why don't we take those first unless there's objection? Should we look at the child care stuff first?
If I could just, that was, at least from what I got the feel from our last meeting, that we were pretty much unified on the first two, at least having more discussions, but the second two were a little, where there was a lot of questions.
Okay. So let's start with the childcare and the preschool, and then we'll see where we go on the other two items.
Okay, let's take those two. Meg's going to go ahead and take it away and outline those proposals, because you all asked for more information, so she's going to go into a bit more detail about what she found out.
All right, so just to clarify in your packets, you received some revised updates to each Head Start, Oregon Pre-Kindergarten providers' individual proposals yesterday via email, and there was still one tiny detail about startup costs with one of the providers left off of that. So there's a revised Appendix A attached to your memo by a paperclip in your folder. So just want to have that in case you need to reference it at all.
It looks like a chart. It's on the very back.
Table on a white piece of paper. And for those here in the audience with us, there were handouts regarding this proposal, as well as the child care initiative that I'll talk about in a minute, for you to follow along. So as you know, in the previous meeting, you were interested enough in the idea of allocating at least $1.6 million over 2 years toward expansion of Head Start and Oregon Pre-Kindergarten, with each of the existing 4 providers in Portland, who are Albina Head Start, Mount Hood Community College Head Start, Neighborhood House, Oregon Pre-Kindergarten, and Portland Public Schools Head Start. And so you asked if I would be willing to contact the providers and learn a little bit more about the expansion options, which I did. So my initial estimate that I gave you of $1.6 million was based on the idea of having each of those 4 providers be able to expand one classroom, a full-day classroom, for the next 2 years. But after contacting each of the providers, they proposed slight variations from that single classroom idea, and I'll get to those in a minute. I wanted to remind you, the committee, as well as the folks here with us in the audience today, of 2 things that are important about thinking about this proposal. One of which is eligibility for Head Start and Oregon Pre-Kindergarten is based on income. So families living with incomes at the federal poverty level, which is $24,000 a year roughly for a family of 4, are eligible for Head Start Oregon Pre-Kindergarten. So this is a program that benefits low-income families. Children in foster care, children with disabilities, and children who are homeless are also categorically eligible for this service. So this service is intended to help some of the most vulnerable children in our community have a head start to school. Children of color, who are also disproportionately from low-income families in our community, make up a significant portion of local Head Start and OPK, Oregon Pre-Kindergarten, enrollments in our community. So I wanted to make sure you understand who this service would be benefiting. The second thing I want you to keep in mind as we look at and talk about costs is that they vary per provider based on the agency's own salary scales, the types of benefit packages that they provide to their employees, the hours of operation of the classroom, and the equipment that the provider already has on hand or not to put toward expansion. From my perspective, the variance between providers was pretty reasonable and somewhat not surprising, all in sort of a range. So from there, I just want to walk through what the 4 providers said they could do. The first 2 I want to discuss talked specifically or proposed specifically to open new classrooms and operate new classrooms. So Albina Head Start proposed to operate up to 3 new classrooms in Northeast Portland with 20 children in each classroom. The cost for each of their classrooms to operate per year is $211,000 plus $20,000 for each classroom in one-time only startup costs. So depending on how many classrooms and children you'd like to see served by that single provider, you can think about the variation in costs that could be supported with that provider's service.
Meg, could you restate what you said the cost was?
Sure. Per classroom, per year, $211,000, plus the $20,000 per classroom startup, one-time only startup fee. Mount Hood Community College Head Start also proposed opening 2 new classrooms, or up to 2 new classrooms with 18 to 20 children each per class. Their estimated cost of operations per classroom per year is $191,000, plus $23,000 per class for one-time only startup fees. And their service area is East Portland and East County, specifically the East Portland, East County school districts. The two other providers proposed changing sort of current configurations in classrooms that they currently operate. So I'll go over Portland Public Schools proposal first and then neighborhood houses. Portland Public Schools currently would like to convert two part-day classrooms, so it's a morning and a afternoon class that operate in the same classroom, and they'd like to make both of those no longer be part-day and be full-day. So they have one teacher now that covers the AM and the PM, and they want to move to having two separate classrooms, each with their own teacher. So PCL funding is being asked to cover the cost of a second teacher to operate the second classroom. We're converting the two part days to full day. The two part-day classrooms currently each serve 17 children. Moving them to the extended or full-day model, they could add 3 additional slots per each of those classrooms. So you'd expand by 6 additional children with that proposal. And the neighborhood house proposal, the details from this proposal came in at a later date than the other 3 proposals, and as a result, there are still some questions in this proposal. In addition, they are proposing to move from a partnership with PPS, where they currently are co-located with their slots at a site downtown in the Ramona apartment complex, which is in the Pearl District, affordable housing in the Pearl District. And so each are contributing about half of the slots in a part-day classroom there now. Neighborhood House would need to negotiate with Portland Public Schools on the details of this, and they've had some preliminary conversations, but what they'd like to do is ask Portland Children's Levy to fund Neighborhood House to operate that classroom entirely, and Portland Public Schools could take its funding and move its service slots and its Head Start to other parts of its service area. So the net increase for Neighborhood House via proposed PCL funding would be 8 to 10 slots. So as I said, based on what the providers have proposed, you could think about this expansion and the total funding to allocate toward it in a couple of different options, and we kind of, as staff, packaged some of those options for you, and that's part of what's on the handout here today. So the first option that we thought about, option A, was our original proposal, which was one classroom with each of the 4 providers, and the cost of that is about $1.6 million over 2 years. The second option, which I'm calling option B, and is more or less which is our staff recommendation, is supporting 2 classrooms of expansion at Albina Head Start, 2 classrooms of expansion at Mount Hood Community College Head Start, the conversion of part-day to extended-day classrooms at Portland Public Schools, and then, depending on additional details to be ironed out from Neighborhood House, supporting their proposed conversion of classrooms or classroom at the Ramona facility. And then option C is and option B is roughly $2.4 million. Without the Neighborhood House piece, it would be $2.04 million, or sort of holding aside Neighborhood House's proposal until further details, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then option C would be funding in whole everything that all 4 providers suggested or proposed that they could do, and the total for that would be $2.9 million over 2 years. So as I said, with option B, one of the things I think to consider is depending on how you want to look at it, there are 3 providers that have proposed to do work who are essentially ready to do that immediately. All of them are in a position where they would need to hire teachers and be able to inform families of enrollments sooner rather than later if they wanted to have those programs operational by this fall. One of the providers, Neighborhood House, there are still some details that we as staff feel like we would need a little bit more information on before feeling comfortable sort of suggesting to fund that particular part of the expansion. But in looking and taking option B, our staff recommendation as a whole, it significantly expands Head Start Oregon Pre-Kindergarten over the next 2 years, with at least 3 of the 4 providers in our community being ready to have classrooms up and running by September 1. It would fund the majority of the expansion that the providers proposed, and it balances the geography of the expansion in both benefiting Portland Public Schools District as well as the eastern school districts that fall within the city of Portland boundaries. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
So on the neighborhood house proposal, I guess if we pick up funding for pre-K positions that are currently being paid for by Portland Public Schools, is there any assurance we have that that money that Portland Public Schools regains gets invested in pre-K? Or
That's a good question. I mean, they're state contracted slots for Oregon Pre-Kindergarten, so they have to use that money on Oregon Pre-Kindergarten. It's not district resources necessarily that are at their discretion. So they should be using it for that service. But again, I mean, I haven't talked to Portland Public Schools about neighborhood houses proposals specifically. I talked to them about theirs. So sort of one of the things that I would feel more comfortable doing and recommending neighborhood house for funding would be to have had a conversation with both of those 2 partners about their arrangement at the Ramona and what is feasible.
okay.
So.
Any other questions about the pre-K proposals?
Well, I'm curious to know from staff a little more specifically in detail why you would be more inclined to go with what is referred to as option B over C. Certainly I realize that those are dollars that we could invest in other children's levy programs. And it's noted that the option B would balance geographically, perhaps more appropriately, but if you had any other thoughts about that, why we wouldn't just go with being able to fund 3 classrooms at Albina Head Start seems to me like a great opportunity.
It is. I was trying to sort of balance the availability of funding for the other things that are on the table for discussion. So, the initial proposal that we all put together on this idea was at $1.6 million. To go from $1.6 million over 2 years to $2.9 million over 2 years is a pretty big jump from what you all initially expressed interest in to if you were to take the proposals in full as they were put together by the providers. So my recommendation was sort of cutting the difference between those 2 and trying to balance your interests and the demand and advocacy of others with being able to do both. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a quick question. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly that if we were to go with option C, that Albina and Mount Hood Community College and PPS would be ready to go, and they believe that they could fill those slots for September?
That's what they've said, yes. And if you go with option C and sort of hold neighborhood house to the side, option C, so the full funding, the full proposals of Albina Head Start, Mount Hood Community College Head Start, and Portland Public Schools Head Start is $2.54 million over 2 years. So 3 classrooms at Albina, 2 at Mount Hood Community College, and the conversion at PPS.
Okay. Otherwise, you would suggest that we do this ceiling of up to, and then, can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. I think my suggestion would be to allocate to the 3 providers that are ready to go. And when you come back in June and revisit what to do with the amount of money that will be left after today, to revisit the neighborhood option at that time.
Just for clarification, because it's a month between the meetings, it would allow those to begin to do that work, it's a tight timeline. That's part of our rationale.
Can you say again what the figure would be for option C with holding the neighborhood house aside until?
Sure. Option C, withholding neighborhood house aside, is $2.54 million.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Sure.
So we don't know if PPS would take that funding to make up for the teacher that they're going to be having extra? Will they add more slots?
With their neighborhood house
Right, with those
work? Well, I don't know exactly what they would do with the funding they have now going into the Ramona. I can find out by talking to them, but we don't know that information at this point in time.
Okay.
We know it's obligated to be
Sounded-
spent on that service. We just don't know what exactly. That,
Or where
Yeah,
it might go.
where.
So it's a
Yeah.
question mark.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't
But it
think it's
does
a
have to
question
be
mark
spent
that
on
I don't think it's a question mark that it would go for pre-K. I think it's a question mark as to where those slots might be located.
Okay.
But we would confirm that.
Okay.
Do you happen to have off the top of your head the unmet need for Head Start Oregon pre-K slots in Portland?
Yes, in talking with all 4 of these providers, it's over, the net total from all 4 of them is over 500 children.
The unmet need.
The unmet need, the children who are on wait lists.
Thank you.
And that was probably a low figure because I asked them to give me wait lists currently, and we're 3/4 of the way through the school year. So a wait list at this point in time versus, when a parent might typically pursue preschool services. So what these wait lists will look like in September when people are having in their minds to sign up for things is a different number than where they are in the spring. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Okay, do you want to run through, move on to the childcare initiative?
Happy to.
If there are no more questions right now? Or-
All right, so you may recall that previously we had a child care affordability and quality initiative when we had unanticipated additional revenues in the past. And the 5-year initiative that we had in the past was professionally evaluated and shown to increase high-quality, stable child care for low-income families and to have made significant gains in providers reinvesting in the quality of care that they provide. That funding, unfortunately, had to end when the levy revenues declined in the past. And you all were interested in seeing whether or not we could do something else like that again. So I met with Multnomah Child Care Resource and Referral that's operated at Mount Hood Community College to see what's feasible and to check on some of the assumptions that I had made about cost forecasts. My staff recommendation last time, or my staff idea, now recommendation, was to allocate $2 million over 4 years to serve approximately 350 children with child care affordability support in that time period. And those estimates were based on our experience of how the costs and the utilization of the program in the past. So staff at Child Care Resource and Referral thought those were reasonable numbers. The affordability initiative would aim to help families pay no more than 10 to 15% of their annual income toward childcare. And there would be 2 eligibility criteria that we would use for participation in the initiative that are based on our experience in the initiative from last time. The first is eligibility for families, which mainly focuses on income. So we would align our child care initiative again with the state's employment-related daycare program, which is a state child care subsidy program for children ages 6 weeks to 12 years, and benefits families whose annual income is up to 185% of the federal poverty level or less. That's about $44,000 a year for a family of 4. So any family that was seeking subsidy through PCL's supported child care initiative would have to be qualified for and receiving ERDC to participate. ERDC doesn't cover the full cost of childcare for any given family. The way that the state calibrates what it subsidizes for a family is based on 75% of the market rate of childcare in Oregon. So families have to pay the difference between that calibrated rate and the actual cost of their care, which can often be hundreds of dollars a month, especially depending on whether you have more than one child in care and the cost of care that you use as a family. So our subsidy would help pick up the portion between what ERDC does not pay for and the cost of their care, leaving families to pay 10 to 15% of their annual income toward child care.
Is that market rate determined on a geographical basis, or is it a statewide?
It's a statewide. I don't know further into whether the market. I don't know if ERDC varies its reimbursements based on locality or region, but I could certainly look into that.
Okay.
But the market rate that is used is figured every couple of years. There's this There's a research outfit at Oregon State that does that market rate study and then publishes what that should be. The other thing that our subsidy initiative would do would be to serve families with incomes up to 200% of the federal poverty level, which is something that ERDC does not do. And that's in part because working families with incomes between 186% to 200% of the federal poverty level, which is only $48,000 for a family of 4. So we're talking about a difference from ERDC's eligibility of $44,000 a year for a family of 4 to $48,000 a year for a family of 4. ERDC does not support families up to 200%, but those are families who are missed by a lot of other benefits that are provided to low-income working families across the country. And helping those families was something that the Child Care Initiative did last time and was utilized by about 20% of the families served in our initiative last time. So it was a substantial benefit to families who are often unable to draw down on other public sources of support and assistance. So those were the eligibility criteria for families. The eligibility criteria, we had eligibility criteria for providers. We wanted to assure that families were able to access high quality care. So eligibility criteria this time would hinge on the state's quality rating and information system. So within the past few years, the state has received federal funding in order to develop quality standards and protocol for assessing providers on those standards, and they're following in the footsteps of many other states in the country. In Multnomah County, more than 200 of the 1,000 licensed child care providers in the county are participating in that quality rating and information system. So we would be looking to help families access those 200 providers in that system. So those are the two main kind of backbones to the affordability initiative that we would recommend funding. Questions?
So under this plan, I assume that it will, or remind me, if last time when this was funded by the Children's Levy in the past, is the funds are turned over to Child Care Resource and Referral, and they manage it, and they make these decisions regarding eligibility and whether they, I mean, I realize that it's matching with ERDC, but in terms of families that aren't qualifying for ERDC, they make the decision on how to allocate, and they report just as our other investees, other grantees.
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So
yes.
all the inside decision making on how this is operationalized is done not by our Children's Levy staff, but by.
It was done, well, last time around, the entire contract was negotiated in consultation between, it was a, sort of conversation between staff and Child Care Resource and Referral. After having the allocation committee approve parameters like the kind I just laid out, there were eligibility criteria for families and providers last time, and then staff working with Child Care Resource and Referral kind of fleshed out the more specifics in the contract. But yes, Child Care Resource and Referral hired the staff who then handled all of the applications by both providers and families to figure out who was going to be eligible and how families would receive benefits and which providers they could use for care.
Okay.
So, Meg, would these include providers on the west side as well as the inner north and outer north Portland too as well, like as long as it's Multnomah County? So
as long as it's City of Portland.
City of Portland?
Yep.
Okay. So for those families that are far north, how would they access services in the Mount Hood, in that area? Will they have to travel there to get services, or will there be something that's in their area?
They should be able to, I mean, it depends on where they're looking to have childcare and whether the childcare provider is able to meet the quality criteria that would go into place with the initiative. So assuming the family was income eligible and the provider they wanted to use had met the quality sort of standards that would be in place, they would be able to use a provider that's in their community or convenient to their work location, or in order to complete the paperwork. Yeah. I think that a lot of times last time it was electronic. Things were emailed, things were faxed. So it would be the same, or they could show up at the office. The staff person who worked at Child Care Resource and Referral last time also did community sort of visits and hours. So if there was a family who had transportation challenges, the staff person would go into the community and meet that person to help complete the paperwork and get it processed.
Okay, so there is collaboration with other agencies to make sure things happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Meg,
Just to be clear, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the Resource and Referral has child care registered. Those people who are registered as child care providers are located all over the city. So just to be clear, that it's not in any one place, it's all over the city.
I just was trying to make sure that there wasn't like transportation issues for those families who are already having.
I understand. Different point. Just want to make sure everyone realizes that what's in that registry it's countywide.
So Meg, the cost estimating we did on the pre-kindergarten was over a 2-year period.
That's correct.
And this one looks like it's over a 4-year period?
Yes. The reason being, the time it takes to get something like this up and running is one thing, and I think you want to commit to more than just 2 years of doing so. But more importantly, the families who would be receiving subsidy, I think by the time you got them enrolled and signed up and providers on board, to only put 2 years of funding into this and then sort of have it be at risk of being cut off would be pretty detrimental to the families and providers. And I think it would be hard as a family to think about wanting to sign up for something that you might only be able to benefit by for 6 months or 9 months. So it makes more sense to serve the families and providers over a longer period of time with this.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I totally get it. But just in terms of thinking about how, I mean, I've got this 8.1 million in my head. So just in terms of that's for the 8.1 is over a 2-year period?
The 8.1 is what was projected essentially to accrue over the first 3 years of the levy. That's over and above what was allocated in the last funding round.
But we're halfway through the first, or, you know.
I mean, the current projections, which projections can change, are that, yes, revenues would be stable. I mean, in fact, they're predicting further increase. Whether we believe that or not, we're just assuming stability.
Yeah, then I got that.
So we would be able to renew, if where you're going is renewing the preschool investment at the 3-year mark, which is when we consider all renewals, we would anticipate having enough funding to do so.
Totally good with that. One of the things I'm trying to do, which is kind of separate from this, is just figure out in my mind, what's an appropriate, as Meg alluded to before, percentage of buckets for how to spend this extra money. So I would like to, for instance, so if we're going to say, geez, out of the 8.1, we're going to dedicate 2.5 million to pre-kindergarten expansion and 2 million to child care initiative. But that's why I asked about over 4-year or 2-year. I mean, it just seems like I'd like to have apples to apples on that question. Not exact, but just so I know. I mean, are we, if we fund these first 2 programs, and if we're going to get to the question of are we going to fund B or C of the first one of the things I want to do is figure out what percentage of this new money we're dedicating to that.
I'm not sure I understand the question. What percentage of money we're dedicating to things that are one time only?
What do you mean to early childhood?
We're estimating the cost of option B in our first category at 2.4 million with neighborhood house.
Right.
And option C at 2.9 million with neighborhood house.
Right.
Okay. And now we're talking about 2 million for this. Mm-hmm. How much of the 8.1 million are we spending down if we said yes to both of these?
If you say yes to, well, it depends on which option B or C you go with in the pre-K expansion. But of the 8.1 million, if you say yes to 2 million in childcare and yes to at least 2.04 million for option B or 2.5 million for option C, I'm going to hold neighborhood house aside. I'm not going to include them in my numbers for this at this point. Then you're spending 4.5 million of the 8.1 if you go with the.
So, but I don't understand why the 2-year term or 4-year term wouldn't change the numerator denominator. I always get those mixed up.
It's just the period of time over which that 8.1 would be spent. We'd want to go ahead and commit. The reason for going ahead and committing on the child care initiative for a 4-year period are the reasons that Meg outlined,
Okay.
as opposed
I'm making
to.
this more difficult than it should be.
No,
Okay.
I think we're just misunderstanding.
The 8.1 is during a 3-year term. Okay?
It's accruing over a 3-year term. We're arguing we should spend some of it over a longer term.
So, but all we can do today is vote on how we're going to spend the money we have in the 3-year term we're in.
No, you could vote to hold, essentially you'd be holding that $2 million for spending over the next 4 years.
So
Does that make sense?
what if I'm with you, and maybe so what if we said we wanted to do today the the Head Start over 4 years instead of over 2 years? Does that change?
That radically changes some things. Keep going, Deborah. I want to make sure I understand what you're going to ask.
Because if we're doing, so I'm just going to, just don't hold me to these numbers. So if we do $2 million for childcare over 4 years,
Yep.
and we do the Head Start over 4 years, which over 4 years would then be $5 million, then are we over?
Yeah, you've exceeded 8.1 million. Because if you do the 2.5 million for OPK expansion over 4 years, so if you double that to 5 million, plus add, I'm doing my math wrong, plus add 2 million for the childcare, you've used up 7 million of the 8.1, so you're not over. You'd still have $1.1 million left to spend.
So how then can we say that we're going to have enough money to renew after 2 years the pre-K, should we decide to do that?
We anticipate having enough money to renew based on what the economist has told us so far. The point of going with the childcare over 4, we could do the childcare for only 2 years.
Well, I think,
Do you see what I'm saying?
at least I don't want to head in that direction. I just want to make sure that we're not starting something, just like with the childcare, that we're not going to start something that we couldn't afford to.
Well, we've had we've been in that position before where revenues declined and we didn't really have a choice and we didn't see that coming. And so I think with the pre-K expansion, one thing to keep in mind is that it's not ideal. You could certainly put 4 years of funding into that, but it's something that can, if you're doing expanded classrooms, it can scale up and scale back within the confines of each of those agencies' infrastructure as funding is available. It's not ideal to them. It's certainly not ideal to families, but it's something that could more easily be started and operate for a couple years and then end than, for example, getting somebody signed up for a childcare subsidy only to take it away 9 months later. So it's a school year. It's a school year versus round the year.
I've got the theoretical down. I don't understand the dollars and cents piece of this, but.
So I think part of the challenge is there are additional revenues that are being forecasted to increase for years 4 and 5 of the current levy, but we, based on our past experience of having to reduce funding for all of the grants that we funded and stop funding the Child Care Initiative last time, do not want to get into the position of suggesting what you ought to do with those dollars yet. So we're working with the dollars that seem more certain in terms of increased revenues in the this year, next year, and year 3. So we're kind of asking you to make decisions over that amount, knowing that we are supposed to have higher revenues in years 4 and 5. So you could continue funding things like the pre-K expansion or any increased grant amounts that you choose to do or any other initiatives you take on today. But we are being conservative and not feeling like we want to get into suggesting what ought to be done with additional revenues that are forecasted for years 4 and 5 based on our previous experience of having to reduce things when things fluctuated.
The other thing to keep in mind is that typically we do a renewal for all existing contracts, and that would be the normal course of affairs. And the only reason that we are suggesting not doing something like that with the Child Care Initiative is because of the setup and ramp-up time for that specific. That's the only reason. Otherwise, we would generally be asking for the same situation that we typically ask for, which is to go, we make a contract period, then we evaluate based on data, we come to you with all the information, and we say, do you want to renew this or do you not want to renew it? And if so, do you want to renew it at a different level than it was at before for some reason that might have become extant? So that's the only reason why we're not asking for the child care to be over only the 2 years. Typically, we would. We would come back to you for a renewal.
Did we get your question answered?
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, good. Mitch, did we get your question answered?
It's me, not you.
No, it is confusing, so
It is confusing.
it's not you.
I mean, normally we would go for the 2 years. It's only because of that. It really was, and originally our staff proposal was only for 2 years. And then when we thought about it, we thought the ramp up period takes time to get the word out, to get the stuff, to make it, and then we don't want to have to turn around and end it by the time we ramp it up. And so it would be better just to allocate the money and hold it over this period. And if we have additional resources, you could put additional resources into it if down the line you want to.
So, different question. Is either one of these programs a 9-month program, or is it a 12-month? Are they?
Oh, the
are they
pre-K?
running 12 months out of the year, or are they?
No, any of them who are here can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're all predominantly school year program. I mean, they operate on the school year for the most part. None of them are operating. Some of them provide home visits to the families that are enrolled in their programs through the summer, but the classrooms themselves are not typically operating in the summer.
So really what we're talking about is the fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to move on to the technical assistance?
Or can I ask a procedural question? Do you want to take public testimony on these 2 early childhood options, and then do you want to discuss those and decide those, and then you could take the technical assistance and the system partners proposals, hear from staff, take testimony, and then vote on those? Does that seem easier than taking them all together?
Okay.
My preference.
Okay, so we'll now take public testimony on the proposals for pre-K funding and child care assistance. Can I get a indication just how many people wish to testify on this? Okay, maybe you didn't need to leave your desk because I don't see any hands raised. Okay, would you like to discuss amongst ourselves now and come to a decision on these 2 investments?
I'm prepared to do that.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm prepared.
I mean, I would speak definitely in favor of funding Head Start and Oregon pre-kindergarten Head Start, as indicated by Meg. The need for, there's always a much more need than we have slots, not only in Portland, all of Multnomah County, but across the state. This has been proven time again as an effective program. It does, as was noted, it serves low-income children, children with disabilities, children who are homeless, children of color. I mean, it meets so many of, I think, the criteria that we talk about that we want for Portland's children. And the fact that the organizations that have slots or have room available and can ramp up are indicating, as I know there's still some question about Neighborhood House, but the others are, they're proven programs. And so I think it's a great opportunity, and I would be inclined to go with the larger funding so that we can fund those 3 additional classrooms for Albina Head Start. So that's what I have to say about pre-K.
Ditto.
Short and sweet.
So I couldn't agree more with everything that Julie said, but here's why I asked the questions I did. I'm trying to think about how a way to allocate the new money. And while after we go through and figure out how we want to go through all these categories, I may be in favor of allocating $2.9 million to this program. Right now, it feels a little high for me. That would be 36%. Excuse me, that would be more than 36% of the $8.1 million. And if just trying to do apples to apples, if we, instead of $2 million over 4 years, we call it $1.5 million over 2.5 years left in this levy, that's 18% of the $8.1 million. So 18 and 36 takes us over 50% of the money, and I'd just like to see the rest of this. So I would be in favor of option B, reserving the right to come back in June and choose C if we don't find anything we like better. And that's why I asked the question about, is this a fall sign-up? It seems to me with a 500 wait list, they're not going to have any problem filling slots if we decide in June that we want to go for the more robust level after looking at all these other probably worthy options. So that's the only reason I would say at this point I'm in favor of B and fully funding the child care initiative.
Okay. Further discussion?
You threw a wrench in there now.
So just in terms of the ramp-up time for a pre-K program, I mean, I know they have to hire teachers.
Yep. And enroll families and let them know.
And what?
And enroll families and let the families know they have a place to come in the fall. And enrollment time for Head Start and OPK is now. And some of these programs, again, I mean, staff are not always around in this. I mean, they do take time off in the summer, just like school districts do. So if you are, it's not, what I'm hearing is most of you are interested in moving forward with expansion. It's a matter of how much money for which providers. And it seemed like Mitch was suggesting that you could start with the $2.04 million now, which is 2 classrooms at Albina, 2 at Mount Hood Community College, and the conversion at PPS. And
2.4, is that?
2.04.
Yeah, Megan, I mean, I wasn't clear on that, and I talked to Lisa about this. What I would be in favor of doing is calling it 2.4 for purposes of our discussion today.
Okay.
And saying that the neighborhood house, which is 400,000 of that, is contingent on coming back in June and having you say, I did the research and we feel good about it. If not, that 400 would go back into the overall pool of what we'd be deciding in June.
Okay.
So
you're still talking about option C minus
no,
the-
that's B. 2.4 is B. Option C is 2.9 if we include neighborhood house.
But it's
It's
2.5
without neighborhood.
without neighborhood.
2.54 without neighborhood
Without
house.
I think what you're saying is that you want to be holding aside the money for neighborhood house in order for discussions to go forward and to come back in June and consider whether you would do that, but you would not otherwise allocate that money now. Does that make sense?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay.
Allocated for purposes how we're splitting up this $8.1 million pie, calling it spent, but understanding that I feel like I need more information from staff running down these issues about PPS and neighborhood house in terms of that proposal. And hopefully it'll come out right and we'll fund it. And like I said, again, Julie, I totally get what you're suggesting, and I may be in favor there, but I would say leaving the door open to come back and fund C in June. But I personally am not in favor of funding C today.
So in June, coming back and revisiting whether or not to award a 3rd classroom's worth of funding to Albina Head Start.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion, or there's no motion on the table?
That's right.
Is there a motion?
So we will need a motion.
Will someone just clarify the motion for me?
No, I do have a question about that because I realize that, I mean, one thing is we're making the decision here about allocating money, but we're also making the decision as to where that money would go. And so what I had thought you were saying, Mitch, was that we would come back, that we would go ahead and fund what has been suggested as 3 classrooms at Albina, 2 to Mount Hood Community College Head Start, 1 for Portland Public. And in June, we would make a decision as to whether or not we want to fund a classroom for neighborhood house.
That's a different way to look
But
at it.
now I'm hearing that you're saying, no, that it would be deciding then whether we're going to do that 3rd albino.
Yes. And
That's what you're saying.
And I'm proposing to tentatively, but not finally, approve neighborhood house today, and we would finally approve neighborhood house in June as well, once we got more information. So
So both
you
of
said it
those.
exactly right.
So both the 3rd classroom at Albina and neighborhood house, we're leaving them both off the table today or that what you were suggesting?
Well, kind of a different way, I guess. I'm prepared to take neighborhood house's $400,000 out of the pie and assume we're going to spend it on neighborhood house, but I want a final vote in June with the information.
Right.
In terms of the $500,000 for the 3rd, or whatever the number is for the 3rd Albina classroom, I'd like to hold that vote until June. Give them, I personally, I would vote for 2 for Albina and, I don't have it in front of me, the 2, 2, 1, 1, and the second one being neighborhood house as a tentative.
Okay.
Well, I think we have to get to what do you want to allocate today? And I think that would be the place to head. So do you want to, it sounds like what I hear agreement from everybody on, I think, but I'll check, is that everybody supports at least 2 classrooms at Albina, 2 classrooms at Mount Hood, and 1 at PPS, and likely holding some, in some form or other, holding funds to find out what happens with Neighborhood House. Is that correct? Everybody supports at least that?
I just want to, yeah, at least I appreciate Mitch is rather confusing. But I think I understand the rationale of holding off on the Neighborhood House piece, but I think that getting some certainty now is important prior to the end of this school year, when we know that kids are going to and families are going to start signing up, and trying to add, and I am in favor of adding the additional classroom at Albina, so I would be in favor of option C, with holding out the Neighborhood House for a vote in June, or potentially if we find other programs that we like throughout this next phase, then it just doesn't work out for them this go around.
Mm-hmm.
I would move what she said.
And I
Oh, wow. Wait. So, okay, I'm going to clarify.
I think what that is, I just want to check that we've heard properly. So what you would basically be allocating today is the 2.54, okay? So that is for 3 at Albina, 2 at Mount Hood, and 1 at PPS, and holding Neighborhood House until we get clarity, and we'll come back to you with that amount in June. So does that summarize correctly what I've heard?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. The motion passes, and we have committed
2.54 million towards
0.54 for
OPK
pre-K.
expansion.
Okay.
And the child care initiative, do you want to hear testimony on that, if there is any, or do we had that option already, right?
We didn't,
Yeah.
Okay.
we didn't miss anybody, did we, on child care?
No, I don't see any hands raising. Okay.
Okay.
Is there discussion on that?
I'm in favor of it.
I also am in favor. It's a great way to help working families. And it's a wonderful way for Children's Levy to show that support using existing infrastructure. So, very supportive.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'd move to support $2 million allocated over 4 years to the child care initiative.
I second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The motion passes. And so now we'll move on to the technical assistance, quality improvement, and the supporting system partners categories.
Okay, I'll talk about the technical assistance and quality improvement for grantees. At the last meeting, the committee requested that staff provide more specific examples of the types of things that would be funded under this option. Before I get into describing some of the specific examples, I'd like to highlight a few key points for you to consider about this option. First, research demonstrates that supporting quality improvements results in better outcomes for children and families. Across all sources and topics of the 2013 community input process that we did in preparing for our 2014 funding process, a key priority that rose to the top across all of our program areas was the need for increased professional development. Looking back in the past few years, or in the past years when PCL was able to provide peer-to-peer learning opportunities in the form of training and information sessions offered by fellow grantees to each other, the most consistent piece of feedback was the ongoing need for staff training and professional development. Also, in preparation for our 2014 funding process, we researched other children's levies, and staff noted that most of the other cities devote resources to quality improvement and quality assessment. Also, looking back at PCL data, considering that the overall staff turnover rate on an annual basis for levy-funded programs averaged 20%, over the past 5 years. We know that there's an ongoing need for training and professional development, and that not all agencies can provide the training themselves or compensate staff for the time spent at trainings. Investing $1 million in these types of efforts represents just 1% of the total projected revenues over the 5-year levy period. And this is assuming that the current projected revenues for the first 3 years and then flat revenues for the last 2 years of the levy. This is a modest investment in our grantees to improve the quality of programming and the quality of data reported on programming. Now to get to some specific examples, what the committee asked for. In the memo, we provided 8 examples, specific information. I'd like to just review 4 of those today so that to refresh your memories and also to share specific examples with members of the audience. So we're looking at technical assistance and quality improvement, so I'll give 2 examples in each of those areas. First, in technical assistance. In the past, the levy has provided evaluation technical assistance, and we've hired research professionals to work with our grantees to review the outcomes that are being tracked, do an assessment as to whether or not those outcomes aligned with what the program services were, what tools are they using to measure those outcomes, and then creating evaluation manuals so that the processes and procedures that they're using are documented, so when there is staff turnover, it's clear how the outcomes are measured. Investing in this type of technical assistance helps the levy assure that grantees are measuring the right outcomes, using the right tools, and defensible methods for reporting these outcomes. We claim and we want to be able to support that the programs that we're funding achieve positive outcomes for children and families, and supporting this type of technical assistance is necessary to assure a baseline level of rigor and continuous improvement. Since funded programs and program models change over time, the need for this type of assistance is ongoing. So because we've done it in the past doesn't mean we don't need to continue to be able to do this. Just for example, in child abuse prevention and foster care program areas, we have 8 new programs. So they haven't received this kind of technical assistance for those specific programs that they're operating. Another example of a technical assistance training is Excel training. So in the past, we've offered grantees the opportunity to attend Excel classes, and this is tied to their evaluation and reporting capabilities. Grantees need to be able to track program implementation, service, and outcome data, and many grantees do so using Excel. Or they must export their data from other databases and record it in others, and then use Excel to further analyze the data. Again, bring up the point of staff turnover. With staff turnover at 20% and with the varying levels of staff competency in Excel, grantees often need ongoing training and support to be able to improve their efficiency and data reporting capabilities. And then 2 examples in the quality improvement area. Building on past experience as well. One of the examples is addressing the high staff turnover rate in the child abuse prevention and intervention program area. As we noted in the 5-year levy report, the staff turnover rates in child abuse prevention intervention area are considerably higher than in the other program areas. I believe it was almost 40% on an annual basis. High staff turnover is a program quality issue because it makes it difficult for program participants to build trusting relationships with the service staff, and it's important to have that trust in order to have participants participate in the program and achieve the intended outcomes. PCL intends to work with the grantees in this program area to identify what might be done to better support agencies and staff with the goal of reducing staff turnover. Another example in quality improvement is improving trauma-informed service delivery. Trauma-informed service delivery is a best practice and an indicator of quality service delivery in programs that are assisting people who have experienced trauma, for example, children who have been abused and neglected, people who are victims of domestic violence or have witnessed domestic violence. We'd like to be able to assure that all of our grantees that are working with high-risk populations have access to training on trauma-informed service delivery as part of program quality improvement. This is something that also came up repeatedly in our community input process, that trauma-informed care is what is needed, and there needs to be staff development in this area in order to move forward in the field. There's a lot of research that has supported the need for trauma-informed care, and it's a process of continual development so that the services can match what best practice is prescribing at this point in time. So it's staff intention to work with grantees to create a specific plan for each program area because the needs vary in each area. Staff would then bring this plan along with the resources needed to carry out the specific plan for each program area back to the committee for final approval. So what we're asking for today is an up to amount in this to cover technical assistance and quality improvement.
Questions or?
Yes, I have a question. How would staff bring these requests to the committee? Would we be meeting on a periodic basis to, say, approve a list of requests, or might they come in?
I mean, typically you would be meeting quarterly anyway, at least, and we would want to work with the grantee groups to formulate that plan before we came back to you with it. My goal would be that by the next time that we're having a series of meetings on these issue of additional allocations, but at the next meeting, which is usually in the fall, that we would have plans for you to look at then. So we would have done that planning and be ready to put it into action if you're ready to go forward.
Thanks.
Do you have any ballpark figures for how much any of these individual trainings might cost? I mean, I just don't feel like I know whether $1 million is appropriate or $500,000 could hit on some of the high important. I just don't have any idea what dollar figures we're talking about at this.
We've had to just basically estimate. We looked at what we spent on just the evaluation technical assistance in the past for some kind of guideline. We hired professional researchers to help us with that work. We only did some program areas because some of them had got technical assistance in the first levy period. So we use that as part of the guideline, but the idea would be to be able to do more than what we did in the past. So I don't know that provides the only guideline that we have. I think the bottom line is that if the money is unused in this area, we would propose you reallocate it to something else. So it's not like it would sit if it wasn't used.
Right, but I mean, are you talking that you potentially could do 6 of the 8 of these kind of ideas, or 2 of, that's the kind of.
I think the thing is we need to meet with the grantee areas to discuss what's doable on what time frame and with what type of assistance to have an actual plan that we could put dollars to. So I don't know that I could estimate it at this juncture more specifically than that. These are the types of things that we're thinking about, but we'd like to be able to be in contact with grantees over some period of meetings to be able to formulate that in more detail. Because these are the things that we've gleaned thus far from our grantees. They may have other ideas. We haven't really gone to them because we don't want to go to them for their ideas if there are no resources to put behind it, if that makes sense.
And this $1 million would be over 4 years?
Life of the levy, so it's 4 years essentially at this point.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Any other questions? Do you want to move on to the supporting system partners description, and then we can take testimony on these 2 topics and then make a decision?
Sure. So supporting systems partners, I realize, is probably the most amorphous and difficult to describe. I think systems work, it's kind of endemic because it's hard often to describe how to improve systems. I think those of us who work in this area long enough realize that systems always need improvement, and we're always sort of working at the edges to try to make things work better, and that sometimes those efforts require dollars in order to be able to do that. So again, you all asked for some more specific examples, so I put some in the memo, and I'll briefly review them here and let you ask any other additional questions as well. one of the things that we do is sit at the Sun Coordinating Council table and Sun Sponsors table to work together on what our joint priorities are. That group has prioritized, for instance, COLAs, which you've already put your vote behind to support COLAs for folks across all of our grantees, and specifically those in the Sun system are supporting them for Sun contractors. They are also thinking about other types of priorities, including academic advocacy, culturally specific academic advocacy, and attendance support. So those are the kinds of priorities that are coming out of that group that we spend time working in, and our goals are very much aligned with the other folks who sit at that table, which include all of the school districts, the county, the City of Portland, Parks Department, and providers, and All Hands Raised, United Way. So it's a wide group of folks who are sort of setting these priorities and trying to put their energy and resources toward achieving the goals. The other things that we have, I mean, there's many examples of the type of tables that we sit at where systems work is being done, and some of that work goes on in connection with All Hands Raised and the collaboratives that it has formed to try to take on systems issues and improve practice amongst folks working in particular systems. And one of the examples that is something where we contributed staff time. So typically we have contributed in-kind resources to these types of efforts. We provide staff time and our effort and energy behind the efforts of a group to try to achieve what they're wanting to do that align with our goals as well. So, for instance, in early childhood, we support, as you know, many investments to try to get kids ready for kindergarten. One of the things that is sort of missing in that system is any way to try to associate the inputs the kids receive before they come to kindergarten and the new kindergarten assessment results that are just coming out. So we're just starting a system of kindergarten assessment. We worked with All Hands Raised Collaborative when they were having their early childhood collaborative, which has since kind of moved into the early learning Multnomah. Gets confusing with all the different partners. But in any event, worked with Social Venture Partners, where Social Venture Partners put up money to fund some basic research on what type of question you should be asking parents around early childhood experiences as part of the registration process. Meg put a lot of her time into working with the various partners and moving that idea, a research question, into the actual forms where actual parents are being asked this question, and then looking at the data and then trying to then make some sense out of it. So that's the type of system effort where that we're talking about, in the sense that we're trying to understand, trying to develop ways in which we might look at our early childhood investments and associate them with the results that we're getting down the line. So that's a systems improvement, if you will. One of the things that early childhood has really lacked, for instance, is any way to understand how early childhood experiences are affecting kindergarten readiness. We haven't had a ready measure because we're just first getting now the early results for kindergarten assessment. So that's an example of changing the system of how we do things to try to get it to work better and give us more answers about the sort of results of our efforts. Another one that Meg is currently working on, I guess both early childhood today, is around oh gosh.
I'm visiting.
Yeah, thank you. I was like, what was the other one? Home visiting. So she's working with the home visiting community of practice around the referral system. One of the things that, if you want to talk about alignment and systems issues, which if you sit at many tables around systems, alignment is probably the number one word you'll hear. And one of the things in trying to get to alignment is thinking about, okay, we've got a lot of home visiting programs. They're all operating in a particular geographic area. We'd like them to work better together. We'd like them to function more as a system. We'd like to make sure that all of the people who are eligible for a home visiting program are getting the appropriate one, and then if we have space in one program, we might be able to get people over to where the space is. And how do those people come together and work together better? So that's something that system partners are always trying to get to. How do we work together better? And one of the efforts she's working on is a group that's trying to tackle that issue around referral and home visiting, and how do we do it better? How do we get our system to work better? Right now, she's contributing staff time. They're at the point where they're going to be, probably in the next 6 months, figuring out what do they want, what things need to change, and what additional inputs are needed to try to get that system to work better. And those are the kinds of efforts. I can't say what they're going to come up with because they're still in the process of figuring it out. But and these are the kinds of things, though, that come up in systems conversations, that when you want to get to better alignment and you want to get to people working better together, it often takes some kind of resource to get there. Staff time, additional people sometimes. It depends on the situation. But those are the kinds of conversations that we're talking about here, and the kinds of partnerships that we're speaking about when we talk about supporting system partners. All Hands Raised has become an umbrella organization for some of those efforts in terms of many of the partnerships existing within that larger ambit. So they're helping to run that. There's other, and we gave some examples in the memo of other types of partnerships that we work in. And I think that, Lisa, am I not mistaken, that
Elevating Prevention.
Elevating Prevention also submitted something. You want to talk a little bit about that? Just a minute?
I'm not.
Oh, you don't? Okay. All right, we won't do it off the cuff. In any event, I'm trying to give a range of examples of the kinds of tables we're sitting at where small efforts, small contributions can often move something down the line toward a better system functioning. So that's what we're talking about, and I realize that it's a little bit undefined, and as in before, the idea would be we would come to you with something specific when these partnerships, are as they move forward and have needs. So it would be kind of a set aside. Again, not being used, you don't like the proposals we come with, I recommend you reallocate the money. So that's the most form I can put around it at this juncture.
And you're asking for
$500,000
set aside
over
$500,000.
life of the levy, yes. Which, again, is a half. So if you think about the technical assistance and the supporting systems work, we'd be looking at basically 1.5% of revenues over this life of this 5-year levy period to put toward those kinds of efforts. So that's system building and quality and technical assistance supports. Pretty modest investment overall, and certainly as compared to other levies in terms of what they put into this kind of work.
Okay. Any questions? Want to move to public comment if there is any? So I think I said this last meeting. What you described there's a lot of elaborate groups out there meeting on important topics, and I'm having a hard time convincing myself that resources are needed. It's not a question of shortage of people around the table trying to solve these problems, trying to align these problems. I'm just not sure where. I'm having a hard time wrapping my arms around, and I think maybe some of the other members are too, about what the actual money would pay for.
Well,
and you don't have to answer that. That's just.
I'd just say, for instance, SVP put up money to pay the researcher to design the question for the early childhood question that is now on the registration forms in all 6 districts that operate Multnomah County. So I'm saying they put up the money for that. We put in staff time. Meg has been doing the organizing work in kind, if you will. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying it's that type of thing that typically gets done. It's an investment in some piece of effort that moves along a system toward an end. Mm-hmm. Okay. And again, I understand that they're not formed now. They would have to come to you on a case-by-case basis, and you would have to decide if you wanted to do them. So you're right. It's hard to get a grip on what it might look like in each situation because it doesn't come up until it comes up.
Okay. Why don't we? Is there anybody for you? You don't have to get up yet. We'll see if anybody wishes to testify on the proposal. Okay, I see some. Yeah, you're gonna have to move. I see 2 hands at least on testifying on the technical assistance, quality improvement for grantees, and then also on supporting system partners proposals. So I see 2 people coming. Is there anybody else? We have room up there for one more, at 3 at a time, I think. Great. So if you just give us your name and your organization, if you wish, if you're affiliated with an organization and you wish to, and then you have up to 3 minutes. Do we have a timekeeper? Okay. Okay, we'll start with you, ma'am.
Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to add some public comment. My name is Megan Perry. I'm the Director of Quality Improvement for the Institute for Youth Success, formerly the nonprofit organization known as Oregon Mentors here in town. We know from a wealth of research that youth development programs get stronger when they're a part of a quality improvement system that includes ongoing professional development and assessment. And we're currently working with a range of partners, many of whom are in the room here today, to bring a quality improvement system framework here to Oregon that's already in application in 30 other states and has been rigorously tested and validated. It's been extensively used in communities that are majority Latino, African American, and Native American, as well as in culturally diverse settings. And what we know from research on this quality improvement framework is that it improves staff retention, improves the quality of services, and ultimately improves youth outcomes. You might be wondering, what specifically youth outcomes are we talking about? Just a few to name from this research is we know that students have fewer disciplinary referrals, higher math grades, and higher state assessment reading results, as well as fewer school day unexcused absences. So we just really advocate that you continue to think about the ripple effect of your investment in ongoing professional development and quality improvement for the staff of the organizations or grantees that you're already supporting. It really supports staff retention, quality of services, and youth outcomes, and we know that from a wealth of resources and research. And there's a lot of different quality improvement frameworks out there. There's some that we know are stronger than others, and we can give you much more information about that.
Yeah.
My name's Erin Cunningham. I'm the Vice President of Programs at the Boys and Girls Clubs. I think that the idea of investing in technical assistance, quality improvement, and professional development is important, particularly when you're talking about youth development programs. The one thing that I would ask as you're formulating how that goes out to the communities is that it isn't restricted only to current grantees. There are a lot of great programs out there that unfortunately haven't been able to be funded by PCL and or minimally funded, and by continuing to only invest in those people and organizations who have been funded, I think that it puts those organizations who haven't been funded at a disadvantage as far as being able to have the greatest impact on the youth that are served. And so maybe taking a look at how you could open up those opportunities for professional development and quality improvement to organizations that are working with youth that either haven't been funded or have been minimally funded, because it is a great resource that could have a huge ripple effect on all of the youth service organizations.
Thank you. Gerald?
Good evening. Afternoon.
Yeah, afternoon.
This is my third meeting in a row.
Third meeting.
And I'm weary. And I'll say to the chair and the chair, we've got two chairs sitting next to each other, and the rest of the committee. You know, I'm glad both of these were put in the same bucket, because theoretically they sound really great and that they're going to move you someplace. But the reality was the explanation of it. And actually, you took all my testimony from me before I walked up here to listen to what you said. Now, look, we have a whole bunch of data teams, more data teams that the law should allow in one local area, all working on data and all working on the things that we are talking about when we talk about these two things. And so it's really, what are we going to value now? And you started off this meeting by valuing serving kids. And you just allocated, was it $2.4 million to serving more kids? We already understand what we're doing with this, and I would tell you that your dollars are better spent by serving more kids. You know, we can't put a finger on what this really is, this quality improvement, and the system partners. Half of them are already funded, they already have charge, they already have things that they're supposed to do. If we don't rush this process and let them do the business that they're out here to do, maybe we'll get some answers. But we've got to wait and let those answers come. I mean, I sit in those same meetings with all 6 school districts across the county. Are we making headway? Absolutely. Do we have data teams? Absolutely. Are we looking at what outcomes are and quality outcomes and trying not to exclude kids from school? All of those kind of things. I don't know if there's something new hiding under a rock someplace that we haven't discovered that is going to make this better, but I do know there is a cottage industry within each one of those areas, and we can fund that industry if we want to, but I'll ask you, does that serve more kids? And if the charge of the children's levy is to serve more kids, let's try to serve more kids.
Thank you all. Anybody else wish to comment? Okay, and staff, you can come back up. And now we will deliberate and make decisions. Anybody want to start?
Well, I would speak on behalf of a consideration for funding toward technical assistance. I am concerned with the amount of the staff turnover in organizations, which probably directly impacts the quality of services to the children. So we're spending money on supporting children or slots for children programs across all of the different areas. But if the quality of the service and the relationship that they have with this, with whether it's a caseworker, depending on the program, who that adult is, the constant turnover is a detriment probably to whether the outcomes are being achieved and quality. And so organizations pay the cost of that. And I do think that investing, that would be just one example, that I think that we do have an opportunity to help organizations increase their effectiveness, the quality of the service they provide. Certainly the evaluation piece is enormous. We rely on evaluation to be able to know whether we're allocating money to organizations that really are getting good outcomes. And the dollars are not there. Most organizations, they have to separately fundraise to be able to have the overhead to do robust evaluation. Very few foundations are able to make that a part of grant making. So I see it as that there is a potential for us to provide some dollars for that. I'm comfortable doing this, especially because staff would be coming back to us with specific proposals and information. It's not just a matter of turning over a bucket of money and that we don't have additional input into. So I think that allocating, I would say $1 million over 5 years of the levy, I'm comfortable with that. I am less inclined to say the same around the system partners. I'm in favor of allocating, setting aside some dollars. I'm not sure that it would be the $500,000 for 5 years. I would prefer that we pull that back and see how the staff is able to bring some proposals to us and see how it works.
Okay. Other comments, discussion? I think I'm in agreement with Julie. I think at most I'd be willing to support the $1 million for the technical assistance, quality improvement. I'm just not persuaded on the system partners proposal.
Go ahead.
I can get somewhere with the technical assistance piece. I think $1 million is a lot of money, especially when we haven't done what I think is the important first step of asking our grantees what they would like. So I would support a lesser sum, maybe half of that. And because I can tell you I'm pretty sure, without even doing a lot of research, that one of the reasons we have high staff turnover is because a lot of our nonprofits are paying not very much money. And I know that Multnomah County steals a lot of people, and I apologize from that. You guys do the training, you get people up to speed, stellar employees, and then we steal them. I mean, I've heard that from almost everybody in this room. So I don't really think we need to put a lot of money into that. I'm really glad we put the money into the COLAs so that we can, that's, I think, going to help with staff turnover. And then I, again, with you, am not supportive at this time of doing something around the system, or what was it? Supporting system partners.
And I would ask, would we open it up for those who are not grantees so that they could get some of the training? Because they are, especially to the nonprofits that don't have it, or those who we haven't funded, would they be able to attend the trainings if they're nonprofit, or?
Probably depends on the type of training arrangements or what the topic was, whether it would be relevant. But yeah, I mean, from where I sit with early childhood, I could certainly see how other home visiting programs that we don't fund, if we were going to do investments in certain types of home visiting, home visitor professional development, I would want their peer programs to participate. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's so dependent on what would move forward.
And I say that because I've been in those rooms where those home visiting folks and the child care workers, and so I was wondering, would they be able to attend? I think it's really important, so I would support it as long as outside nonprofit agencies would be able to attend those trainings.
Okay.
Think about level of resource in that regard, because there are 6 program areas with different needs.
Right, but we don't know yet if you're going to do all 6 yet, right? Or are you planning to do all 6?
Well, we need to, I mean, you know, I think
But that would be a-
something would happen, because remember, as we discussed with around evaluation technical assistance, we've got new grantees in every category. I would
Right.
imagine that we would be working with any new program around evaluation technical assistance. And, you know, people, and also people change their designs and the outcomes they want to measure and how they want to measure them as time goes on. So it's something that even happens with current grantees in terms of need for professional assistance in figuring that out in a level that's with some level of rigor. So that's, I mean, you know, if you imagine, so there's 4 years in which to do the work. How much, you know, that's $250 a year, 6 program areas.
I have a question, though. If we're viewing the whole 8.1 as potentially, I mean, if we were to spend this money in a program area, in a hunger program area or something, potentially we would have those dollars to reinvest or renew. Potentially, I understand it's still not given, but we could potentially renew those dollars after the 2 or 3, whatever the grants are, and still be under our cap. So I think starting with something smaller and making sure that people are participating and using it and that it's of value to our grantees that's at least what my point of view would be.
So that's the interesting question I think that we're faced with. This is the first time we're allocating but not spending, right? We're basically saying, should we put some money aside and see if we can convince ourselves to spend it? And I'm intrigued enough with this area to be in favor of allocating $1 million. And you know, just the trauma-informed care is just a great example where we're trying to fund programs that do that, but we can't find programs that have enough people trained that they can meet the requirements that we set out. And so if we funded the training for that, could that change the paradigm and really be a quality improvement? I suspect that within a year, it will be very clear to us whether $1 million is too much, the right amount, or too little. And because we have some programs we fund that are scalable, for instance, childcare is incredibly scalable. If we don't spend, let's say we allocate $1 million, a year from now we say, way too much, we're going to spend $150. We could easily take the $900,000 or $850 and put it into child care initiative and spend it before the levy period was out. And so I don't think it's a wasting of resources. Again, I wouldn't be comfortable spending it today, but I'm very intrigued on whether, after meeting with the programs, the staff can come up with some ideas that excite the group. So I am I would be in favor of allocating $1 million, even if it's temporary. And then I agree, in terms of the second category, I think there's something there. Maybe if we allocated $100,000, and same thing, if the staff doesn't come up with ideas that get us excited in the next year, then that $100,000 just flows through to scalable programs before the end of the levy term and gets spent.
Okay. Well, so I hear support for the technical assistance quality improvement, but it's either authorizing $500,000 or authorizing $100,000 or $1 million, excuse me. And then on the supporting system partners, I hear, I guess, just one person saying $100,000.
I would do the supporting partners, but I would probably do it at $250. $100,000 is not really any money, and since I'm a community person, I think even if you do it at $250, at least it's something to be at the table. If no one's going for the $500,000, but at least putting something there as a placeholder.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So 100,000 to 250 to 0. So why don't we? I guess I'll entertain a motion. Why don't we deal with the technical assistance quality improvement funding first? Everybody care to
I'd
make?
move to fund it at $1 million.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? So it's understood that that's a not to exceed amount, and it's contingent on the allocation committee approving specific proposals that come before us from this category. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay? Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So the motion passes. And then on supporting system partners, any motions, proposals?
I would move that we allocate $200,000 over the 5-year period.
Second?
Second? Okay, moved and seconded. Further discussion?
I would just note that I've been a part of the early learning funders roundtable, and it brings together grant makers, organizations, experts in the field in conversations. I don't think there's a lot of money that's required from the partner organizations, but there are times having experts coming, sometimes there are expenses involved with that, and there is a real benefit to having those conversations. So I think it's important. I know the Children's Levy staff has been at the table in those cases and doesn't pay part of the bill. And I think it's an important opportunity that we have, that when we are at the table, that even it's a nominal amount, with good reason, that we also are showing that we are able to make that, that's an investment that we're making too. So that's why I do feel that I would want to have an opportunity to invest in those partnerships.
Okay. And the motion was 200,000, is that correct? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Motion passes. Okay, so now we come to one of the issues that this committee has to deal with next, and that is we have more or less allocated of the 8.1 million. We've allocated about half of that today in decisions around childcare and
5.24.
Okay.
Or round numbers.
Okay.
So the question remains.
We allocated previously the COLAs, not to forget that.
Oh, right,
Okay,
good
so that
point.
was about 465, if I'm not mistaken?
That's right.
Okay.
So we've allocated almost $6 million, or invested $6 million by our decisions today. And we need to decide, we have one more meeting scheduled on June 2nd, where we hope to make decisions on what programs to further invest in. And underscoring that, or underlying that debate is, do we limit the remaining investments to programs we've already funded, or do we look at programs that we also did not fund? So I think it would be very helpful to make a decision now on that, and that'll help guide staff in the next month. And staff, do you care to weigh in on that one way or the other? And we'll take testimony on that in a second, too.
I think there's pros and cons. I think I don't think that staff has a position that we are taking on whether you should open it up to funded or unfunded. Staff has asked you and to prioritize in the previous meeting, thinking about some of the unfunded programs in hunger, where some of the committee wanted to fund them and where staff had recommended that they be funded. So that was a particular set of unfunded programs that staff recommended. We didn't take a position on whether you wanted to look at other unfunded programs, and I think that's up to you. And we will take your direction on that in terms of preparing more information for you. Maybe we should talk about this issue first, because there's other information that we've put together and preliminarily given to you, and I want to have a chance to check whether there's other pieces of information that you want before we come to that next meeting.
Okay.
So do you want to deal with the funded, unfunded first, or you want to think through that, or hear what people have to say?
Hearing what people have to say, right. Yeah, public testimony, yeah, I think. If there's no further discussion, we'll take public testimony, and then we'll make a decision. Let me see a show of hands. Does anybody wish to testify on this? Okay, okay, so 3 at a time. How about the people who haven't spoken yet, to be the first 3? And so again, the question we're deliberating on is, we have about $3 million to invest in programs, additional money.
I think we only have 2.
2, okay, sorry, 2. And the question before us is, do we limit that to programs that we've previously invested in most recently, or do we also consider programs that we didn't fund in the last round. So if you give us your name and your organization if you wish to, and you each have up to 3 minutes, and I guess you don't have clocks up here, so I guess there's a clock over there that tells you where your time is.
Oh, there's one right ahead.
Yeah, but it doesn't measure minutes, though. I don't need to see it. I just noticed it was different than over in our chambers. Go ahead.
Okay, your place is better. I got it.
No. This is much more roomier. This is much more spacious. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Allison Dunphy. I work for Pathfinders of Oregon. I'm the director of the Center for Family Success, and we're a current grantee under child abuse prevention and intervention. We offer services to families who are involved in the criminal justice system or in the child welfare system. And this has been a very successful year for us. Our contract goal is to serve 100 families in our Parenting Inside Out classes, and we've already reached that goal, and we still have 2 months left in the fiscal year. So we also have a pretty big wait list as a result. We've noticed a great increase in demand for our services. This year, 50% of our clients referred to us are from child welfare, which is a huge increase from the previous year. And of those 50 parents that have participated in our Parenting Inside Out class, 70% have graduated, which is no small feat because it's a 12-week program, 4 hours a week, so 48 hours. It's a big commitment. Also, we have been contacted by Inverness Jail. There are lots of parents in the jail who would like to receive our services. We don't currently have a contract with the Sheriff's Department to offer those services, but we're going in anyways because there are a lot of, it's in the city of Portland, and there are a lot of Portland residents there who are parents. Our first outreach event there, 20 dads showed up requesting services, which was pretty surprising. Also, we have been keeping an eye on state proposed House Bill 3503, which is, if you're not familiar, alternative sentencing program for parents who have not committed violent crimes. If that legislation passes, and I'm feeling pretty positive that it will, we will have an increased demand on our services as well, because parenting is a big piece of that alternative sentencing program. So in addition, we have 20 slots for our early childhood home visiting program, and we've been contacted by the 1145 program, which serves young men who have some gang involvement who are on bench probation, and they've identified 7 fathers who would qualify for our early childhood home visiting program, but we don't have space for them right now. So we would greatly appreciate additional funding to our program as an existing grantee, and would be grateful for any amount that you could give us. And we brought a mom here today, so she's next. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dora Fugate, and I am a mother of a 9-year-old who has special needs. I came into this agency when I was in prison over 10 years ago, before I had my son, through the parenting class, and then came back into the center for help after my son was born. And they were crucial in helping me been working with them since my son was 18 months. He's 9 years old today. And through this agency, they helped me parenting support, employment, housing, and getting my son the support he needs for his issues and his disabilities. And not only do they help with my son, they helped me through supporting in every aspect that I needed to be successful upon coming out of prison. I have not returned to prison. I am parenting my son, and I still continue to rely on the center for everything. And I just remember looking at Michelle 3 weeks ago and telling her, what would I do without this agency? What would I do without you? And this agency is so important. It is so important, and it helps somebody like me feel successful and be successful. Thank you. It's really important. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Bartolatti, and I'm with Metropolitan Family Service. We're a current PCL grantee and would like to thank you for your support. I just want to say a couple of quick things. We are in favor of funding that supports some of the hunger relief efforts among agencies that are already doing a great job in the city of Portland and particularly in East County. So we would be in favor of any kind of support that helps those organizations work better together and effectively deliver some of the emergency food services and coordinating of other services among the current grantees and those that aren't necessarily PCL grantees. And then the other area that we would like to advocate for is flexible, funding for flexible pre-K, preschool-like models. I know that this committee today endorsed the investment in Head Start, but there, as you know, 500 or so people on the Head Start waiting list, and there are a lot of culturally specific and culturally responsive preschool-like models that can address that unmet need effectively and at a low cost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next three. So welcome, and just give us your name, your organization, if you wish, and I think I'm going to have to limit you to 2 minutes, given that we're getting close to the end of the meeting. So sorry about that.
My name is Kat Kelly. I'm from Proyecto Única with El Programa Hispano. We are a current PCL grantee, and we work with children and families who have been subjected to domestic violence. And we wanted to just thank you so much for your support. Certainly, we want everyone to get as much support as possible. We were able to, with the most recent allocation, to increase and add mental health services to our programming, which within a month of starting that program, we were already at capacity because the need is so great. We work with majority undocumented families who need extensive help that doesn't exist inside of other social service systems. So the way that we're able to use the flexible funds through the Portland Children's Levy has been essential in supporting families who don't have access to things like food stamps, who don't have access to certain kinds of housing supports and programs, who don't have access to health care. So for us, being able to round out services that address the unique needs of the undocumented population is essential. And the mental health services that we've been able to provide for the community through the Portland Children's Levy has been fantastic, and we need to continue offering those kinds of services, but we also need to have consideration for emergency financial assistance as well. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julia Mitchell with Portland OIC. I'm here on behalf of Joe McFerrin, who is at a training out of town. And he would like to let the committee know that his stance is to have the PCL, have you guys support the unfunded programs, and specifically POIC and SEI had written a proposal for child abuse prevention and intervention that was unfunded. And he noted that a part of your goal was to allocate to cultural specific organizations 30%. And at this point, you're 4% under that. So there's that variance there. And by supporting this program, the proposal that was written by our two organizations, that we would help you to meet that goal. And also, the therapeutic intervention piece of that component is something that we feel we could really help with and have impact in that cultural specific African American community. And it looks like your goal is 40%, and right now you're at 35%. So we think we can help make up the difference too if our program was funded. We also believe that with POIC and SEI coming together and collaborating together, that with these cultural specific program offerings, that we would best serve our community as a whole as we're spread out throughout East Multnomah County and City of Portland Northeast.
Okay, thank you. Pam?
Hi, I'm Kim from AKA Science with Impact Northwest. We are a current grantee and very grateful to be one. Our application has actually scored #1 in its category for our provision of high quality hands-on science enrichment for elementary school students. And we're very aligned with the Levy's goals. We serve 50% female students, 64% who are east of 82nd, and 68% students of color. And we're meeting an important need in the Sun schools, the community schools that we work with. Because so many jobs require science literacy, both current and upcoming jobs, but science instruction time is really declining in classrooms around Oregon. And we were actually funded at a higher rate for most of our 11-year history with the levy, and we haven't had our funds restored from the budget cuts of about 30% 3 years ago. We've worked so hard to really try to subsidize and offer the program as widely as we can, but we can't meet the need, and we're just having to scale back how many schools we can offer programs to. So with this demand, we're just asking that with added funds, our minimum goal would be to meet that demand and offer a class each school term to each Sun school that wants one. And with additional support, we'd like to expand and meet the demand for K-3 classes as well. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, all of you. Okay. Got three more?
If nobody else, I'll take all the time.
No. Let me just do a time. Is there anybody else that wishes to testify?
3, 4.
3, 4, 5. Okay. I'm afraid I'm going to have to limit you to 1 minute because
I've never done anything in 1 minute.
we've always found that people can say in 1 minute what they can say in 3 minutes. So we will start with you, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Paige Hill, and I'm a program coordinator with College Possible, which is a college access organization that serves low-income students starting their junior year of high school until they graduate from college. We applied for funding through the Portland Children's Levy and were declined, and we're hoping to be considered for additional funds. We would love the opportunity to speak in specific about results that we've achieved in the past year, and they have been incredible. But with this short amount of time, I just want to share more of a story. Before I joined the College Possible leadership team, I spent 2 years as an AmeriCorps member working directly with students. And I opened the first session with students with the following quote. The coolest thing about this program is that every single person in this room wants to graduate from college, and all of you will. You'll be a member of College Possible for 6 years, maybe longer, and sometimes things will get really hard or demoralizing or annoying. But as long as you remember how powerful and unique it is to be a part of a team that all wants the same thing, it will be a little easier. This isn't just about you getting to and graduating from college. You'll do that. It's about all of us working together to achieve that for everyone. So we hope that you will consider us for additional funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh. That minute went by quick. Hi, everybody. My name is Kendra Johnson. I'm here on behalf of Impact Northwest Urban Opportunity Program. We are a current grantee, and I would like to thank you all for that. Currently, we are serving right at about 70% youth of color in 3 of Portland's most under-resourced high schools. While we are grateful for the current level of funding, it definitely isn't enough. Because of previous cuts, we had to pull out of 2 schools, specifically Jefferson and Madison, leaving an unmet need at these high poverty schools and under-resourced youth with little or no access to job readiness training. We ask you to consider us being funded at $100K per year. With this amount, we will be empowered to restore services at all sites and offering job skills, materials, resources, and paid internships, as well as being able to formally implement our follow-up program, which continues to work with the youth as they graduate our program and navigate through career services. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you just tell me what the name of your program was?
Yes, again? Urban Opportunities.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Gerald?
Back. The young woman from Portland OIC talked about the SCI OIC collaboration in child abuse prevention, and we believe that this is a culturally specific program that should be explored and funded. The other one is that in our after-school program that we currently operated, that it was funded at, I believe, about 80%, and we believe that restoring it to 100% would be the thing to do. We've always run an outstanding after-school program, and your support would make that program even more outstanding. So,
thank you.
Is that 1 minute?
You see, you did it.
Did I do it?
To spare.
I mean,
1 minute to spare.
yeah,
Yes.
right.
Okay.
Very well.
Okay. Next three. Come on up. And if you can just give us your name and your organization, and you each have a minute. We'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Lynn Tan, and I manage the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organizations, IRCOs, Sun Community Schools. Through our Sun Schools alone, we work with over 2,800 families per year, and we are a PCL grantee, so I thank you very much. However, today I'm here to talk about our one unfunded hunger relief proposal. And this is to serve families we work with at Gilbert Park, Jason Lee, Madison, and Len Sun programs. Although we were one of the highest scorers in the last RFP round, we were unfortunately not funded. Ranked high on the equity index, these schools continue to face the largest growing number of students eligible for free and reduced lunch, and they also have a high percentage of students of color. IRCO brings solid experience running community food pantries in collaboration with Multnomah County and the Oregon Food Bank. School-based pantries have begun to address hunger in our school communities in a way that builds confidence and dignities. Our immigrant and refugee families have learned how difficult it is to access support when school staff and members do not understand their language, cultural beliefs, dietary requirements, or cooking styles. Funding this proposal will provide our most vulnerable populations the support to access food resources within their own schools and the larger community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jerry Janowski, the Executive Director of Saturday Academy. We are also a PCL-funded program for our after-school program. What I would like to emphasize is we would like the funds restored so that our after-school program continues throughout the summer. You have funded a number of programs today, all of which where children are left after that 9-month school period with nothing. And we would like to really have education go year-round. The second point I'd like to make is that we do provide over $125,000 in tuition assistance for any open enrollment program, so we can leverage the PCL funds once we know of these kids to take really schooling, all sorts of schooling all around the year. So we think that your money would be expanded quite a bit with a good program.
Thank you.
My name is Erin Cunningham with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Portland. We are currently funded through PCL for a new Sun site, so thank you for that support. We also have several proposals that were unfunded through PCL, and so I am here to advocate for opening up the funding to unfunded proposals. At the Boys and Girls Club, we really work to engage the entire child. We work with kids from 6 to 18. At the Boys and Girls Club, they're going to work on art, they're going to work on hands-on science, they're going to be able to do physical fitness, and then also have parent and family engagement and support as well. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is that for those kids and families who struggle with working within the school system or very traditional systems, they can come to the Boys and Girls Club and get the support that they need. And so we're also serving a huge amount of children in East Portland, which was a high priority for the Portland Children's Levy. And with your support, we can continue to serve those kids east of 205.
Okay, thank you all. I thought there were a couple more hands, maybe 2 more people. Welcome, and just give us your name, your organization, and you have a minute.
Okay, hi, my name is Meg Wills. I'm with Impact Northwest, and I'm here to talk about the importance of the Parent-Child Involvement Project, which you had funded and then discontinued funding for, and we've seen the need not only from providers asking if the service still exists, but also from survivors with children who want to work on the parent-child attachment and bonding after they've gotten out of an abusive relationship. What we're asking for is positions for 2 parent-child specialists that could serve up to 120 children a year. And we've seen really amazing results and ways that the cycle of domestic violence can be broken if people can work on healing from the abuse that they've experienced. Thank you.
Thank you. you get the last word.
Thanks. My name is Amber Baker. I'm the program director with Village Gardens. I want to thank the committee and staff for the opportunity to encourage your support of the Village Gardens program and Janus Youth Program submission under childhood hunger relief focused area. Our proposal, like a few others, ranked highly in the category during last year's review, and we believe speaks strongly to the core purpose of the hunger relief category, which is not only feeding children, but also to help eliminate the dynamics of hunger in our community. We want to urge you to use these new resources that have been identified to help honor the original competitive process of the Children's Levy and to fund our program, along with the other highly ranked programs in the hunger relief category that were recommended but not funded in the first round of decisions. Village Gardens also brings a unique opportunity to support a program that was focused on alternative approaches to hunger relief. With some moderate funding, we believe that we have some strategies that are different than some of the other programs that are being proposed and that are worthwhile in that we meet immediate food needs and also build leadership and employment opportunities for the children and families that we're trying to serve.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Okay, staff, why don't you come back up, and I know we just have a few minutes left here to try to make a key decision that will then enable staff to provide us some recommendations for our June 2nd deliberations. Are there anybody have anything they want to put out there in terms of the question of should we limit the remaining $2 million to programs we already funded or programs that were funded plus those that were unfunded or some combination thereof?
I just have a clarifying question. Is it programs that have been funded, or programs that have been funded and programs that have not been funded, or the organization has not been funded? Because it's different.
We're talking about applications.
Okay.
Applications.
So we're not going to
programs.
consider, so it doesn't matter whether the organization was funded in the past or not?
It's all about the specific applications that were submitted. Everything is in terms of that. So organizations often submitted many applications, some of which were funded, some of which were unfunded. So it's all about an unfunded application, not about a particular agency, if that makes sense.
Or underfunded?
Yes.
Yes. Well, right, yes. We'd have to define what that meant, but yes, okay. Are there thoughts?
So, yeah, I guess that is sort of a important distinction Mitch brought up too. It could be underfunded.
So the unfunded would include the hunger programs because those were not funded the first time around. So if we say, so that's why I move that we allow programs that were not funded to be considered for the June meeting.
I would second that.
Can I just?
Yeah.
Sure.
I would agree with that as long as because there were several programs who really got hardly anything. I think it was like 3 or 4 programs last time that just really got the leftover. So I'm in support of funding those underfunded programs as long as we look at those who were drastically underfunded the first time. Those, I think, 3 or 4 programs that were just like at the tail end of when we were allocating those funds.
I think there'll be no question that anybody who is currently funded will be in the potential pool to be considered. So I think the only question is whether you want to also add to that pool people who applied but were not funded.
Okay, I guess what I'm saying is that we look at those applications first and then look at the unfunded applications.
So prioritize.
Yeah, prioritize.
Okay, so there was a motion and a second, I believe. Was that correct? And discussion?
An amendment.
An amendment.
An amendment, okay. So let me just restate what I think is on the floor here, and that is to consider programs we already funded, plus those that were not funded, and to give a priority look at those that were
drastically
underfunded in our last round. Is that a correct statement of motion? Okay. Any further discussion?
I guess it's really hard because if $2 million is the right number that we're talking about, I am very focused on the quote unquote underfunded programs, the programs that we chose, voted on, and then funded at an amount less than either the committee wanted to fund them at, or a majority of the committee wanted to fund them at, or at an amount less than they asked for. If that category is is $2 million worth of funding that I am not in favor of looking at other programs that were not funded.
Okay.
So that's a little, because that's a kind of a, I don't know what the answer to that, and I don't think staff does either, because there's work to be done, and it's not a clean question, because some programs weren't funded because part of their proposal didn't meet the requirements and part of it did. So technically that might not be in our minds an underfunding. And then there were other programs. I remember, just like Serena is, at the very end we were kind of chopping and saying, how much money do we have left? Okay, let's give them 40%, let's give them 60%. And I'd like to go back and fix that first, personally. So.
And Mitch, when I looked at it, those programs were under $1 million.
Under $1 million, yeah.
Right.
I talked to Lisa today. There's a group of under 15 programs where there were a majority of votes in favor of a higher funding amount, and they got less. To me, that's the first very clear. I'd like to look at that group, see if there's any reasons why, and then fund up that group first, and then look at everything else.
So I'm not necessarily hearing disagreement, I'm just hearing prioritize.
Yeah. And I guess if we're going to spend $2 million on the first group, I feel bad about sending you guys back to do a bunch of analysis on the unfunded programs just to have us say, oh, we don't have any more money. Thanks for all the hard work. We don't really want to look at that.
I think the other part of that is that we're also, we're giving a message to the community as to they need to know whether there's an opportunity for them to advocate for themselves, and that if we're saying that we're open to the unfunded applications, that it's fair to make it clear that we are willing to listen to that.
I think that's what's on the table, that it would be open, but you're stating, at least some of you are stating, very clear priorities for other things.
Okay.
Well, and I say that too, because there were several that were, when I say were drastically underfunded, I thought it was just really unfair because it was the last grouping that we were able to get to. And so I thought that looking at that, prioritizing those 3 or 4 first would, kind of bring it up to fairness. Sorry, I'm just about fairness. I didn't think it was right. So.
Okay.
So again, prioritizing.
Right.
Prioritizing. Okay.
I think we're all saying the same thing, mainly just
I think so.
prioritizing.
And I think we also know $2 million isn't going to go that far. So, anyway, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So, staff, you're going to come to bring us some recommendations?
Yes,
for our
we'll
next
bring
meeting?
recommendations. A couple of things I would say, since we don't really have time to go over the kind of information that we've furnished you thus far, which we put out to the public too. We listed all the variables we've given you all. If there's other things that you want to know, I just would ask that you communicate with us offline about that, because we want to be able to prepare consistent information for everybody, for all grants and all applications. So just so if there's other things you want, then you be in contact with us within enough time that we can get it to you so you can look at it. We'll come with recommendations as we always do. We will put them out to the public in advance of the meeting, so folks will have what our recommendations are before you all meet, and we will provide our usual kind of slating process where you can choose what you would choose to prioritize. I think that's it.
Well, I'll just add, we are we're making tough decisions, but we are in an enviable position of being able to make decisions about investing further dollars in Portland's children. And our next meeting will be Tuesday, June 2nd from 3 to 5 p.m., and it will be back in Portland City Hall. And we will make decisions on investing this remaining $2 million. Agendas will be sent out to the Levy members, or the allocation members, and to the public. And you can always visit the website at portlandchildrenslevy.org.
And just on one last note on that, I wanted to make sure, because people have said they have been unsure how to contact allocation committee members, just to make clear in this form, and we'll also put this out via email to our entire contact database. All emails for all allocation committee members are up on the website. If you want to make an appointment to talk to somebody, you can email them about an appointment to talk to them on the phone or meet with them. All folks are open to those things, pending their schedule, obviously. But you shouldn't feel that you don't have access, because it's right there. So please, you've got a month.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. We stand adjourned.